What I want to do right now is just pause for a moment and give a shout out to Bailey Bass for playing Claudia in season one of Interview with the Vampire. Because she really was the starting off point for how the character should be portrayed. So she did a great job. Um, and I have to give a sitting ovation for Delaney Hells, who plays Claudia now. And her performance was brilliant. So I'm going to do it again. Wow. Just brilliant. Coming off of episode 5, where Queen Akasha is revealed, for this episode, the very next one, for Delaney Hells to perform the craft in the way she did, projecting emotion into our veins, it was just outstanding. Her performance broke me. The ghost of Claudia was summoned, and she told it like it is. I would never want any loved one of mine to endure what Claudia is enduring in the afterlife. Having unrest, being alone, and not being with the one person in your life that was unfortunate who actually loved you, which was Madeleine. I really hope that either in the season finale or next season, Claudia is reunited with Madeleine, that somehow they can make this all right. When Claudia disappeared, I don't think Louis was relieved. I think he felt like he was finally empty. Sometimes we spend so much time preparing ourselves for one conversation that we never stop to ask, what happens after it's over? What happens when you finally said everything you wanted to say? What happens when you realize the answer wasn't the one you were hoping for?
I heard you calling me.
I didn't call you. You dumb bitch. I'd have tripped Armand on the stairs if I wanted you with me.
And that's where Louis is right now. Not searching. Can't even hope. He's just living with the truth. Then the episode becomes unexpectedly quiet. Louis and Lestat sit together on a bench like they always have from the first day that they met. They're not fighting. There's no manipulation going on. No performances from Lestat. It's just silent. And I actually like that scene, because sometimes silence can be the loudest form of grief, and the way that it was exuded showed that. And throughout this entire series, Louis and Lestat have spent so much time trying to convince one another who is right, who is wrong, who's to blame. But sitting on that bench, it was like none of that mattered anymore, because Claudia had already answered the question neither of them wanted to hear. And then Louis says something. And for a split second, it made me smile a little bit. He begins imagining a completely different life, a quiet one, just him and Lestat, just being together, living peacefully somewhere in the desert. Think about that. They're vampires with all types of power and history over centuries. They've experienced violence and loss and politics and blood, all for the fantasy of them living in a desert, and has nothing to do with power or immortality. It's not about them being stronger. It's just a fantasy of peace. And I thought that was actually beautiful, because underneath everything, Louis is still dreaming about an ordinary life, something he couldn't even get in New Orleans. And this episode reminds us that horror never knocks, it just simply arrives. Because in the next moment, after Louis shared that fantasy of peace, Daniel and Armand come with two blades. One movement, two heads, and then they just fell. And to be honest, guys, I don't know about y'all, but I kind of laughed a little bit in that moment. Not because it was funny, but I genuinely was not expecting that. It was such a shock. It was like seeing two broken men talk about peace in the past, and then in the next moment, their heads are rolling across the floor. I was like, damn. Only Anne Rice could end such an emotional therapy session like that. But here's what fascinated me about it. I don't think the decapitation was the point, because anyone familiar with Anne Rice's vampires and this series knows that ancient vampires, according to her, don't simply die by losing their heads. So, that leaves us with another question. And I think this might be the biggest mystery leading on to the season finale. Why? And why now? Why did Daniel and Armand why did they choose to do that? What are they choosing to accomplish that couldn't be accomplished without them doing that? A clean slash, man. And here's my theory. I don't think Armand wanted to kill them. I just think he wants to humble them, especially Lestat. For centuries, Louis and Lestat have controlled every room they've walked into. They've always had choices, power, agency. But the moment their heads hit the ground, they lost all of it. They're completely helpless now, unable to fight, run, politic, any of that. They can't do anything. They don't control their own story anymore. And maybe that's exactly what Armand wanted. There's something I've been thinking about since finishing this particular episode. The biggest question of all: will Claudia ever find Madeleine? Because honestly, guys, out of everything that happened tonight, that's the one thought I can't stop thinking about. So if there's one thing I hope you take away from my review of this episode, it isn't simply that Claudia hated Louis. It's this: if there's someone you love, tell them. If there's someone you need to forgive, don't wait. If there's someone you need to apologize to, just fucking do it. Because unlike vampires, we don't have centuries. We only have today. And maybe that's just a Dark Lake thought. Because in my experience, no matter how dark the night becomes, where there is darkness, there are always stars. Remember that. This is the author, Lake Sevens. And this was a scene in a Dark Lake edit. Let's go.
Why do I actively, manically pursue failure?
Maybe it's just the vampire's burden. What do you replace death with? what's to live for if there's no end. Maybe it's just how you keep your nights straight.